Hello everybody, this is Miss Peachy from your WCA Biology B class, and I'm doing a video recording on Unit 3, Lesson 9 on chemosynthesis. So we are almost done with Unit 3, everybody. This is kind of our last content or new content lesson. Just as a reminder, I do have a study guide or a worksheet that I have created for this lesson. It is found in the link below my video on my website. So if you're on my website, that's where that link will be. It will not be linked on YouTube. You'll have to have access to my website to get to it. So we have our vocab, we have some questions, we have some additional vocabulary. So let me just kind of go through what the content in this lesson is. So our keywords are acetophile, alkalophile, anaerobe, chemosynthesis, endolith, extremophile, and halophile. And we'll kind of go through what those mean in just a couple minutes here. So basically this lesson is talking about kind of an alternative to our sun-based ecosystems. We've talked a lot about photosynthesis and respiration, but there are ecosystems on Earth that don't rely upon the sun. The first ones that were discovered were in the deep depths of the ocean near hydrothermal vents back in the late 1970s. And this is an area where sunlight does not penetrate, but there's still thriving ecosystems. And so these ecosystems rely on a different form of creating their own food. So remember, photosynthesis is using the sun's energy along with carbon dioxide and water to be able to synthesize food without, that's where our primary producers do, right? And that's our base of our food chain is the primary producers. Well, in these particular ecosystems, instead of a process of photosynthesis, we have a process called chemosynthesis. And so instead of using light energy, which is what photosynthesis is based upon, this uses inorganic molecules such as hydrogen, sulfide, or methane as kind of an energy source to synthesize food from that. It's called chemosynthesis, and it's pretty much it is a process that is relied upon by certain organisms, and these organisms we call extremophiles because they often live in very harsh extreme conditions and various conditions where there's no sunlight, or perhaps lots and lots of the high temperatures or high pH, for example, or low pH, or excessively salty conditions. So very different conditions than what we normally associate with living things. So chemosynthetic organisms are primarily bacteria, and they use, like I said, these inorganic molecules such as hydrogen and sulfide to actually synthesize their own food. They become the primary producers in their specific food chains then. Moving on, to make sure we have lots of ecosystems then that kind of depend upon the primary producers that are using chemosynthesis for their base of their food chain. And we actually have some organisms that live within these ecosystems that actually have bacteria that are incorporated into their body tissues. So, for example, let's see. So there are some marine animals that have adapted by having bacteria in their tissues that use methane or sulfur to make energy. And an example of this would be these tube worms that are found near these hydrothermal vents. They're very specialized. They actually have a mutualistic relationship with them, so they benefit from the bacteria living in their tissues, and then the bacteria benefit from them as well. And so there's some just very interesting different organisms that rely upon these systems. Let's see here. Like I said, primarily bacteria are going to be your chemosynthetic organisms. And we're also going to kind of go to a different part of this lesson, all the way over here to slide 10. And in slide 10, they're going to talk a little bit about that term extremophiles. These are organisms that are adapted to live in one or more of these extreme environments. So they use Acetophile, an organism that grows best at very low pHs, so very much acidic environments. Alkalophile, these are organisms that grow best in high pH. So normally we would associate living conditions with kind of a neutral pH, right around 7 on the pH scale. Acetophiles would be at extremely low pHs. Those are acid conditions. Or alkalophiles would live in very basic conditions. We have anaerobes. These are organisms that grow without oxygen. We have endoliths. These are organisms that live inside rocks or in the pores or mineral grains that are present in the rocks themselves. We have halophiles. These are organisms that require high amounts of salt for growth, so very, very salty conditions. And we have methanogens. These are organisms that produce methane from the reaction of hydrogen and carbon dioxide. So these are some of the extremophiles that we studied, that scientists study, and these are some of the extreme conditions in which they live. And it also talks a little bit about how scientists like to study these extremophiles more. For one, they produce enzymes that can kind of, help in their situations, but they also help. We can use those enzymes for purposes that might help us. For example, let's see here. Enzymes from some alkalophiles are used for making laundry and dishwashing detergent. Other alkalophiles enzymes are used for making paper and treating waste because it produces a protein that breaks down hydrogen peroxide. So they like to study these extremophiles and the enzymes that they produce because we might have a human use for them. Maybe medications, industrial chemicals, or other processes are some things that we might use these for. Another way in which we like to study them is interested in life outside of our planet. So we do know that the Earth, especially in our own solar system, the Earth is exclusive in its conditions that are favorable for life that we know or are familiar with, right? So we're not going to find the same conditions on Venus or on Mars or something like that. But we will find more extreme conditions. So the question arises, if life has evolved on Earth to live in such extreme conditions, couldn't life have evolved on other planets where those similar types of extreme conditions exist? So they like to study these extremophiles and really kind of broaden our understanding of what conditions are necessary for life. Because if we have such extreme conditions that can host life here on Earth, that can broaden our understanding of potentially where life could be elsewhere in the solar system. So it's not a very long lesson here. It's just kind of giving you some exposure to some other types of living things and other ecosystems that are not dependent upon the sun. The vast majority of all ecosystems are dependent upon the sun and photosynthesis, but extremophiles and chemosynthesis does exist. So it's nice to have a good, at least some exposure to it at this point. If you have any questions, let me know, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, I shall see you in the next video.